Hello and welcome to another one-take toilet talk audiobook production as read by the Plurality Report. This series novel is now CHRONOMASTER by Roger ZELAZNY and Jane LINDSKOLD, based off of the smash hit computer CD-ROM game. CHRONOMASTER. Time is merely one component of a universe. Like any other, it can be altered. The back. The laws of physics have been repealed in the countless custom-made pocket universes of a strange new cosmos. Reality is variable, and bottled time is as essential as oxygen. But a mysterious stasis enshrouds two of these universes, threatening to spread to others. Inside, time has stopped. Who, or what, could be altering the pocket dimensions? And why? Only René Corda, the retired planet sculptor and terraformer, understands artificial universes well enough to untangle the mystery. To find answers, Corda and his ship's meddlesome computer, Jester, must embark on a journey that will hurl them headlong into bizarre and dangerous dimensions unlike anything known before. The blurb. "Let's get out of here, Jess," Corda said, heading back into the main building from the observation platform. "I've changed my mind about scouting further. We'll get back to the fort, find the world key, and finish the job we came for." "And what job might that be?" said a hissing voice. "Jess, this is no time for games," Corda said, spinning in the direction of the voice. "Boss, I didn't say anything." The PDA bobbed forward a few inches. "It did." Corda blinked in astonishment, his hand dropping to his blaster. A hulking, bipedal reptile stood at the end of the corridor, effectively blocking his exit. It wore a metallic tunic emblazoned with the emblem of herbs and carried a large laser cannon, the type that usually took a human both arms and a tripod to manipulate, tucked lightly under one arm. This one is for the good folks at Intracore and Dreamforge, too numerous to name, who made it all possible. Forward. Time has passed so quickly since the time Intracore approached Dreamforge Entertainment to work with two of the finest science fiction writers of our day, Roger ZELAZNY and Jane LINDSKOLD, on the design and development of CHRONOMASTER, a groundbreaking graphic adventure. As fate would have it, CHRONOMASTER was one of Roger's final projects, and thus holds special meaning with all members of both companies who worked to develop this adventure. Whether you have been a fan of Roger ZELAZNY's writings over the years or are just now discovering them, the excitement and fantasy he has brought to science fiction will never be duplicated. Now, thanks to Jane LINDSKOLD, their story and vision is continued through the creation of the CHRONOMASTER novel. Her story will take you through pocket universes and worlds filled with magic puzzles and plots as Corda embarks on his quest to return justice to the stars. We thank Jane for her undying devotion to Roger and his dream. We hope you enjoy the journey. Intracore Entertainment, Inc. and Dreamforge Entertainment, Inc. Chapter 1. A rain of liquid silver, the meteor shower streaked around the sleek elegance of the starship. On the bridge, Rene Corda, the ship's captain, owner, and indeed sole living occupant, watched the storm of stone and metal, imagining that it tinkled against the hull much as rainwater had rung against the tin roof of the house in Tennessee where he had been born. He was drowsing when a perky female voice broke his concentration. "Hey, boss. We've got an incoming call from someone who identifies herself as the regional representative for Old Terra." "I'm busy. Tell her to go away." "Boss, the call is coded urgent. Don't you think you should at least talk with her?" "I'm listening to the rain." "Sugar Pop, it's coded urgent." "Very well, Jester. Give me a minute's delay and then put the rep through." The captain swiveled his seat so that he would be sitting upright when the call was connected. From the armrest, he deployed a mirror and checked his appearance. Average height, gray-blue eyes, blonde hair cut short. He did not show his age, the 3 long centuries linking him to the boy from Tennessee. Of course, he'd paid enough for the drugs that gave him those years and made sure he would not show them. "Call coming through, boss," Jester's voice said. "You might want to put the mirror away." Rene Corda did so, almost regretting, and not for the first time, giving his ship's computer permission to sass him. He had nearly rewritten the personality program a dozen times, but had always halted. What other friend remained to him? The woman whose image appeared on the view screen was attractive, if one liked the flamboyant cosmetics now fashionable on Old Terra, which Corda didn't. Her hair was confined in a tight headdress and her figure concealed by the loose robes of a high-ranking government official. "Do I have the honor to speak with Rene Corda, captain owner of the Jester, universe maker of the first rank?" "That's me." Corda did not volunteer to help the conversation along. The Terran regional representative had interrupted his reverie. Let her do the work. It had been a long time since he needed to cater to the whims of government officials. The Terran regional representative did not seem annoyed by Corda's abruptness. Silently, he awarded her 2 points for poise. She knew enough to put her personal reactions aside in order to do her job. "Mr. Corda, my name is Conchita Devenu. I am the regional representative for the government of Old Terra and associated planets." "Delighted," Corda said, although his tone said he was anything but. Conchita Devenu continued. "Recently, a very sensitive matter has come to the attention of this office. Our research shows that you are the best person to deal with this difficulty." Corda leaned slightly forward in his chair. "I am retired, Representative Devenu. That means that I do not deal with difficulties." Conchita Devenu's face showed emotion for the first time, but the annoyance that flickered across her painted features did not touch her voice. "We are aware that you have retired, Mr. Corda. However, when we fed data about this problem into our computers and requested recommendations on who would be the best to solve the problem, your name headed the list by a far margin." "I am flattered," Corda said, "but I am not taking any work." Representative Devenu nodded curtly. "Very well. I have a proposal for you. Since you have been kind enough to take my call, I request that you humor me long enough to permit me to outline this problem. If you are interested, you can take the job. If you are not interested, perhaps you can recommend somebody who could. This would at least help us narrow down the computer's other choices." "So, there are other choices," Corda said. "Yes," Devenu replied, "but their percentage chance of success was by no means as high as the one given for you." "I see," Corda considered. His mood of quiet meditation was broken, and if he was honest with himself, he had to admit that he was interested in what problem would be urgent enough that the representative would attempt to call him out of retirement. "Very well. I will do you a favor and listen." Representative Devenu smiled a tight-lipped, professional smile that looked as if it concealed an urge to tell Corda where he could take his favor. Her words remained calm and polite. "Thank you, Mr. Corda. I will flash your vessel a standard confidentiality contract. When you have read and accepted it, we will talk further." The screen went black. "Boy, oh boy, Sugar Pop," the voice of the Jester's computer said. "I really think you ticked her off." "Quite possibly," Corda replied. "Has the contract come through?" "It's here and I've scanned it," Jester said. "It looks good, Sugar Pop." "Give it my seal and return it," Corda said. "And Jess?" "Yes, boss?" "Don't call me Sugar Pop." "Right, Renee." There was a slight pause then. "The confidentiality contract is off to Representative Devenu. Put her through when she signals." "Gotcha, boss." Conchita Devenue's expression, when she reappeared on the screen, had lost any trace of annoyance. She curled her lips in a polite smile. "Thank you for your prompt response, Mr. Corda. Shall we proceed with the briefing?" "Go ahead," Corda said. "I will listen carefully." Devenu gave another polite smile, then, with a glance at a note screen, began to speak. "Within the last half-standard year, 2 pocket universes belonging to private owners have been put into unauthorized stasis. We were notified by merchants who could not enter each universe on pre-arranged trade missions." "Well, of course they couldn't," Corda said. "If a universe has been put into stasis, time within has ceased to function there. No one without a specially prepared ship could get in." "Precisely," Representative Devenu said. "I have been authorized to hire an expert to enter those universes, find how to reactivate them, and, if possible, hunt down and capture the saboteur responsible." "Wait a minute," Corda said. "Why is the government of Old Terra involving itself with pocket universes? As far as the physics go, those universes are wholly independent entities. Don't they have independent jurisdiction?" "An intelligent question, Mr. Corda," Representative Devenu replied. "Under the provisions of the Treaty of Mars, pocket universes are independent entities within their borders. However, to facilitate cooperation between these areas outside pocket universes and the pocket universes themselves, extra jurisdiction is given to the governmental systems that hold the rights to the void space in that region wherein the universe's entry point is located." "And these 2 universes," Corda said slowly, "presumably have their entry points in Terran space." "That is correct," Representative Devenu said. "Since the merchants who could not enter the universes are protected under the trade provisions of the Treaty of Mars, we are authorized to investigate. Preliminary investigations showed that stasis was in effect. That having been established, we sought an expert and so contacted you." "I understand," Corda said, rubbing his jawbone. "Pray continue." "The legal situation does have its awkward aspects," Devenu said. "The Treaty of Mars grants jurisdiction over the space outside the pocket universes and imposes Terran law on interactions between the universes and any entity outside their borders. However, some could argue that actual entry into the universe is a violation of the rights granted by the treaty." "I see," Corda said. "Interesting." "Our legal experts," Devenu continued, "have interpreted the law as protecting those who would do legitimate business with the pocket universes." "Those merchants again," Corda said. "Correct," Devenu nodded. "Since their business was prearranged and they stand to lose with the universes and unplanned for stasis, the legal department has argued that our government is authorized to make an in-depth investigation. However, you would prefer that if I take this job I do not overemphasize my connection to the government of Old Terra," Corda finished for her. "Precisely." An interesting restriction, Corda said, but reasonable. Is there anything else I should know? Not much more, Representative Devenu said. Our computers have indicated that you are the ranking specialist on both terraforming and the creation of pocket universes who also holds Terran citizenship. You are the best person professionally and legally to solve a problem that may, without exaggeration, threaten the continued existence of hundreds of thousands of sentient beings. Corda considered. It would be false modesty on his part to deny his abilities in his chosen fields. He had begun as a terraformer, an artist in the sculpting of planets not merely to make them habitable, but to fulfill the whims and wishes of his clients. From that it had been a logical development to learn how to create pocket universes. The training had taken half a century, but he had considered the decades well spent. Afterward, he had created a handful of pocket universes, crafting every detail from the essential laws of physics to the fauna and flora on each planet. A pocket universe was a microscopic thing on the scale of the real universe, not much larger than a solar system, but for a human, the sensation of creating one was godlike. With more wealth than any one man could spend and virtually immortal due to the access his wealth gave him to advanced medicine, Corda had retired to design a universe of his own. However, for nearly a decade he had been drifting from place to place around Universe Prime, Jester, his only friend, forever searching for a hint of what he wanted in a universe of his own. Suddenly, the attraction of listening to imaginary rain against the ship's hull diminished. Corda wondered what had become of the man who had dreamed first of sculpting worlds, then universes. Surely there had to be something of that self remaining in his weary soul. "Mr. Corda?" The anxious note in Representative Devenue's voice made Corda realize that he had fallen silent for a good while. "Sorry, Representative," Corda said. "Wool gathering. The province of the long-lived, I feared. If I choose to take on this investigation, what is the government offering me?" Conchita Devenue's expression brightened. For the first time, Corda realized that the official was genuinely worried about the fate of the yet unidentified pocket universes. Feeling as if ice was melting around his own soul, Corda listened. "You can pretty much name your fee," Devenue said. "Additionally, we can offer you some startup support in the shape of equipment and access to databases for research." "Let's see," Corda said. "I don't really need money, and I have a fine ship." "Don't you know it, boss?" Jester interrupted. "But I wouldn't mind making my life easier around tax time. Would the TRG's generosity extend to a remission of my taxes for the next century?" Conchita Devenue nodded, a smile touching her lips as she realized that Corda's fee would not touch her departmental legal budget. "I can approve that without going to the committee. Is there anything else?" Corda nodded. "I would like an official writ saying that anything I do in this job which could be construed as illegal would be reviewed in light of the urgency of the situation. Perhaps I could temporarily be given a law enforcement officer's badge." "I can do that," Devenue said, "as long as you don't think that this writ is giving you carte blanche to commit murder or other crimes. I must remind you of the need for confidentiality in this situation." "Consider me reminded," Corda assured her. "I simply want to be able to call on you if I find myself unexpectedly running afoul of the local law. Now, back to business. I notice that you haven't told me anything about the universes in question." "That information is classified for anyone except the one who takes on the job, and a limited number of my staff members here," Devenue said, her tone guarded. Corda discovered he still knew how to put on a reassuring manner. "Consider me on the job, Representative." "You'll take the job." The representative forgot her dignity long enough to bounce in her seat, then regained her composure. "Thank you, Mr. Corda. Thank you." "You've piqued my interest," Corda said. "Now flash me a contract so we can get to particulars." A contract will take a few hours to draw up, Devenu said. Flash me a letter of agreement, and we will work out the details later. It's on the way, Corda said. Jester? I'm on it, boss. Devenu looked agreeably surprised at the turn of events. She tapped a few icons on a screen off to one side and then turned to face Corda. The two universes in question are called Herbs and Aurons. She paused expectantly. I can't say that I've ever heard of them, Corda said, and that in itself is a bit odd. I'm retired, but I've been keeping up with the trade journals. Interesting indeed. The representative paused to make a note, then continued. The entry point to Herbs is closer to your current position. Aurons is somewhat further. Do you have any indication who was the designer for either one? Corda asked. I fear not, Devenu said. This information was not required for our registration files. Let me give you what I do have. May I record? Please do, Devenu answered, then started in surprise. When the representative had given her agreement to have the conversation recorded, the jester had manifested her persona icon on one of the holopads on the bridge. In a fit of whimsy, Corda had designed the persona icon to complement the name of his ship. A petite figure no more than a foot tall. Jester was cute, but not too mischievous to be conventionally beautiful. She was brightly clad in close-fitting yellow and purple checked leggings and a tight hot pink leotard. The sleeve details of the leotard picked up on her yellow and purple leggings. Her wild blonde hair evoked a jester's cap. The only things missing were the bells. She sat cross-legged on her holopad, an old-fashioned stenographer's notebook on her knee. I'm ready when you are, boss, she said, giving Devenu a perky smile. Devenu recovered her poise with remarkable grace. I see that you and your vessel have all sorts of hidden qualities. Corda sighed. In Jester's case, that at least is true. To business? Indeed. Devenu glanced at her note screen. The axis point for Herbs, as I mentioned, is the closer of the two. As the name hints, the universe is fully urbanized. It has a single Earth-normal sun, several planets, and an asteroid belt. A cross-check of our immigration records shows that a comparatively small number of humans have requested visas. However, this does not rule out non-human inhabitants or inhabitants from outside Terran space, Corda said thoughtfully. True, Representative Devenu agreed. The largest portion of imports into Herbs consists of raw metal ore, pre-made electronics and the like. The largest portion of their exports is completed, customized mechanical devices. Fascinating, Corda said. Do you have an owner's name? It is registered to a consortium called God's Pockets, Devenu said. I checked out God's Pockets and learned that none of the board members is listed by name. That is evocative, Corda said. Is Aurons possibly also owned by God's Pockets? Devenu nodded. It is indeed. I have about exhausted my information on Herbs. Would you like me to go on to Aurons? Please do, Corda said. On her holopad, Jester made a show of flipping to a clean page in her steno book. Aurons is listed as being designed around a binary star system, Devenu began. There are three major bodies, a gas giant, a large semi-desert world, and a smaller Earth-like body. Immigration from old Terran space is minimal. Imports include cryo-frozen embryos of exotic animals, artwork, and a large number of historical relics and reproductions. There is a side note that physical laws are not universe prime standard. Do your records say what they are? Corda asked eagerly. I fear not, Representative Devenu said. We could not require that detail to be listed. All we have is a notation ordering incoming ships to signal a satellite for briefing. Corda rubbed his hands together briskly, realizing that he felt more alive than he had for a long, long time. This could actually be fun. "If that is all the information you have on tap now," Corda said, "I will let you go so I can begin my own research. You can draw up our business contract." Devenu bowed politely toward the viewscreen. "Is there anything else I can do?" "Yes. See if you can find anything more about God's pockets. Did they have any other universes made? How did they pay for them? Anything we can learn may help me with herbs and aurans. I may be able to contact their board and get formal permission to enter." Representative Devenu frowned. "And if the board refuses your permission?" "Then we give them 24 hours to reactivate those universes. If they don't, I still go in under the provisions of the Treaty of Mars." Corda grinned at her. "Don't worry, Representative. I'm not trying to back out of the job." Devenu smiled in return. "I never believed that you were. Good luck with your research, and I shall be in touch." "Thanks," he replied. "Corda out." Jesta set down her notebook, which conveniently vanished. Rising to her feet, she stretched, wriggling in a distracting fashion. "What's next, Sugar Pop?" she asked. "Just what I told Representative Devenu," he said. "Research. I may be able to figure out who the designers were just from what I know about the styles and pocket universes. I even have some guesses already." "Who?" Jester said, hopping from pink-booted foot to pink-booted foot. "Tell me, Sugar Pop." "Not until I've done more research," he said. "I don't want to look the fool. Oh, and by the way—" "I know," Jester sighed. "Don't call you Sugar Pop." Corda winked at her. "Right. Now let me get to work." As he sat down in front of the library console, Corda realized he was humming softly to himself. Apparently he no longer needed meteors to make music. He was finding it within himself. Chapter 2. Some hours after his discussion with Conchita Devenu, Rene Corda turned away from his library console. "Jester, I need you to call a place for me." Promptly, Jester appeared on her holopad. There was a switchboard in front of her as she wore a headset that somehow managed not to flatten her hair. "Number, please," she said nasally. "Charlie Bell," he answered. "You should find him in the Universe Designers Directory. He was one of my instructors at the Academy, and we worked on a few projects. He's retired now, but last I heard he was living on Venus." Jester wrinkled her nose. "Venus is awfully hot." "Ah, but Charlie's a terraformer, just like me. I don't doubt he's made himself comfortable." Jester's hands moved as if she was plugging in phone connections. Intellectually, Corda knew that the starship's communication systems had already begun signaling Venus. The ship's call would be relayed from satellite to satellite, first in system, then orbiting the planet, before it reached Charlie Bell. Had they been outside the Terran solar system, the call would have been difficult to make. Had Bell dwelt within a pocket universe, especially one with a non-standard physics, such a simple call would have been impossible. "I have Charlie Bell on the line," Jester said, still affecting the nasal whine. "Put him through," Corda said, suppressing a sigh. Jester would play. She wouldn't be Jester if she didn't. "Renee!" Charlie Bell seemed genuinely pleased. He hadn't changed much since Corda's days at the Academy. His white mustache still flopped walrus-like, its profusion seeming a deliberate defiance of his bald head. Like Corda, Charlie Bell was wealthy enough to afford anti-aging drugs, but he had begun the course later, and he was about 150 years Corda's senior. The centuries did catch up with one after a while. "Renee," Charlie continued, "I could hardly believe it was really you when the call came through. How've you been? I heard you retired." "That's right, Charlie," Corda said. "Your example was too good not to follow. Besides, I was getting fed up with some of the unimaginative design specifications. If people wanted to live on Old Terra, why didn't they just stay there?" "Perhaps they wanted room to grow, political and social freedom. There are lots of reasons," Bell said. "Not everyone wants to live in a work of art. You know that as well as I do. Have you designed your private universe yet?" Korda shifted uncomfortably in his chair. No, not yet. I can't seem to work out just what I want.
I know the feeling, Bell said. When I was working just for myself, suddenly there were too many options. Fortunately, my wife wanted to be near our eldest daughter, and Freya has settled on Venus to do thermoscapes. It took the decision neatly out of my hands, and I can't say I'm sorry.
Yeah, well... Korda didn't know quite how to answer. He had never found a woman to settle down with and raise a family. His only marriage had ended in divorce. Idly, he found himself wondering if, just as with a pocket universe of his own, he found it easier to dream than to make a commitment. Bell seemed to sense Korda's discomfort, for he changed the subject.
I can't believe you called me after all this time just to chat. What's going on?
Relieved, Korda turned to business. I called to ask if you know anything about a pocket universe called Herbs. Its access point is in Terran regional space. At the word Herbs, Bell's relaxed, welcoming manner vanished. Suddenly formal, he turned an unfriendly gaze on Korda.
Herbs? I may have heard of it. Why do you ask?
I heard about it from some people, Korda said, concealing his surprise at the change in Charlie's mood. I thought I recognized your design work and decided to look into it.
I see.
Charlie fell quiet for a long moment.
Yes, I did design Herbs, but I can't say anything about it. I signed a confidentiality contract even more restrictive than the usual. I probably shouldn't even admit to designing the place.
Korda studied his old friend. God's Pockets drew up this contract? Bell arched a wispy white eyebrow.
That's right. They paid well, too. In case that's your next question, they were even able to get Nizim Rokhtar on to do some work for them, and you know how expensive alien designers can be. Now, Renee, I won't say anything further about the job. Nada, nicked, zero, zilch.
I understand, Korda said, frowning slightly. Charlie had grown a bit pale. Was that fear in his eyes? What could the people at God's Pockets have said to him that could make him so edgy? Politely, Korda turned the conversation to more neutral subjects. Mutual friends, Charlie's swamp orchids, Korda's travels. When they ended the call with various promises to stay in touch, Korda was more puzzled than ever. He knew little more about Herbs, but he was beginning to suspect that God's Pockets was at least as interested as interesting as what had happened to two of their universes. He wondered if Representative Devanue would turn up anything further about them. Jess, I'm going to take a break for a sandwich and a cup of coffee. While I'm at it, look up the number of a universe designer named Nizim Rokhtar. She's an alien and may not reside in Terran regional space. Jester twirled happily on her holopad. When I locate where to call her, should I go ahead and get it started? It may take a while to make out system connections. Do it, Jess. And bill Representative Devanue for the connection charges. In fact, you might want to see if we can link the call through the government channels. They could be more efficient. I'm on it, Sugar Pop. Korda sighed. Easing himself out of his chair, he headed off to the galley. He was halfway through his second salmon and Swiss with German mustard on rye when Jester popped into existence across the table from him. She was wearing her phone operator's headset again. I've finished the link-up, boss, she said. Nizim Rokhtar should be available to talk with you inside of 5 minutes. Korda washed down the last of his sandwich with a mouthful of dark beer. Wonderful. I'll take the call on the bridge. Hey, great and powerful maker of the universes, Jester called after him. Wipe the mustard off your nose. Korda did so. Staring at the yellow smear on the back of his hand, he decided that moments like this, when Jester's initiative saved him from making a fool of himself, were worth a fair amount of teasing. The call from Nizim Rokhtar came through just as he was easing himself into his chair. Due to the distance involved, there was a slight lag between the reception of the image and response. Korda used it to study the alien. She was quite small and resembled nothing so much as a kangaroo rat. Perched rakishly between her ears was a flowered straw hat. A cigar hung from the corner of her mouth.
Greetings, highly ranked, most important designer of universes,
Nizim Rokhtar said. Her voice was high and somewhat squeaky, just as Korda had expected.
What may this lesser-ranked one do for you?
Korda placed a hand over his heart and bowed. This one has contacted the wise Rokhtar to request information on a segment of the art in which Nizim Rokhtar is known to have no peer. I speak, of course, of the designing of desert worlds. Nizim Rokhtar took her cigar from her mouth, setting it in an ashtray shaped like a small volcano. She also bowed with a hand over her heart. Beside her, the cigar smoke drifted up the cone of the volcano so that it appeared to erupt.
This one is pleased to hear that the great Korda so named her an expert. I would be happy to assist him in whatever small way I can.
Korda had used the delay to frame his response. I heard of a universe called Aurans. From the description, I believed it to be the artwork of Nizim Rokhtar. I placed a bet on this, and now I humbly await your confirmation. Nizim Rokhtar twirled her whiskers around one paw.
Yes, this one did design the universe called Aurans. Of course, professional confidentiality permits me from discussing the details of my design, even with one so august as you. I would need a signed waiver from the universe's owners.
That would be an organization called God's Pockets, Korda said. Would you have an address where they can be contacted? Lifting the cigar from the shadow of the volcano, Nizim Rokhtar puffed on it to get it burning again while she considered his request.
I fear I do not have a contact address for my former employers, she squeaked at last. However, perhaps Clea Triffitt does. I understand that she undertook to design several universes for God's Pockets.
Korda made a note of the name. Thank you. I shall owe you a meal next time you visit my region. Nizim Rokhtar blew a smoke ring.
Perhaps the great Korda would permit me to use his praise of my desert worlds in my dossier. That would please me greatly.
I would be honored, Korda said. I spoke only the truth. After a few more exchanges of compliments and flattery, the call was terminated.
Wow, that call is going to run up the national debt, Jester commented. Do you want me to locate this Clea Triffitt, boss?
Would you please? Korda said. I've heard of her work, but she burst on the scene about the time I was getting ready to retire, so we never had any personal contact. Still, she seems to be our last lead, unless Representative Devanue discovers something else. Leaning back in his chair, Korda studied the ceiling. He was impatient to be moving, to start the hands-on portion of his job. However, he knew that research now could save him considerable trouble later. He was almost as fascinated by his impatience as he was by the problem that Representative Devanue had set before him. How he had been willing to confine himself to the narrow boundaries of his starship for so long when there was an entire universe, hell, a series of universes out there for him to enjoy. Boss, I have a contact number for Clea Triffitt. It's an Earth number and on the night side of the planet, but the listing does say to call any time. Place the call, Korda said. We may just get an assistant at this hour, but maybe not. I'm on it, Jester said. The call is through. Korda straightened his chair, returning his gaze to the view screen. The face staring out at him was nearly expressionless, dark, and somewhat foreboding. May I speak with Clea Triffitt? Korda said. He was certain that Nizim Rokhtar had used the female pronoun.
Clea Triffitt has died,
the man said, his stone-faced expression not altering a whit.
I am in service to the attorneys for her estate.
Something clicked into place in Korda's brain. He wasn't addressing a human here, but an android. No wonder calls to Clea Triffitt could go through day or night. Korda permitted himself to look shocked. Dead? How did she die? The android tilted his head stiffly, quite like he was running the question through his programming before answering. Single-task androids were rarely as clever as multitask creations like the Jester's computer program.
Clea Triffitt died when a fire broke out in the building where she had offices.
Korda frowned. Was it accident or arson? The android tilted his head again. The official ruling was that the fire was accidental. The building was quite old and the insulation was not up to code. There was some question, however, as the fire seemed to begin simultaneously on the floors above and below, as well as on those with the Triffitt offices. So all of her records burned too, Corda said thoughtfully. That is correct. All that was not stored in vaults was destroyed, the android replied. Were you a client of the Triffitt firm? I was planning on becoming one, Corda evaded. I had heard about her work from an organization called God's Pockets. They sent me to her saying that I could check her work using them as a reference. The android's pause was longer this time. I regret to say that client confidentiality forbids us to discuss Clea Triffitt's work. If you return with written or videoed confirmation from God's Pockets, we can discuss this issue further. Good evening. Corda blinked in surprise as the call was terminated without further formalities. Jess, he said, do you get the impression that everyone we've spoken to is scared stiff of God's Pockets? Jester appeared on her holopad, sitting cross-legged, her chin resting in her hands. Yeah, boss, I do. I'm just a computer, but there is definitely a pattern developing. It's strange, Corda said. Universes created for God's Pockets are the victims of our saboteur. The company must have lots of money, or they couldn't have contracted for several private universes, but no one we've spoken with knows anything about them. Strange. That's saying it, Sugar Pop, Jester said. Why don't you catch some shut-eye? I'll wait for Representative Devenue's call. Corda rose and stretched. Sounds like a good idea. Give me some warning before you put her through. Got it? Jester grinned wickedly. You mean you don't want her to see that you sleep in the buff? Corda did not deign to reply, making his retreat with what dignity remained to him. He had gotten a solid 8 hours' sleep and was in the galley sipping strong Irish breakfast tea when the call came from Representative Devenue. Deciding that he was too comfortable to move, he had Gesture route the call to the galley. Good morning, Conchita Devenue greeted him. She was definitely more friendly than she had been the day before. I have some of the information that you requested. There was a faint ping in the background of the galley, and Jester, a chef's hat perched jauntily atop her hair, appeared on the nearest holopad. Your scones are ready, she stopped speaking, acting as if she was aware of Representative Devenue for the first time. Well, hello, don't you mind if he finishes breakfast, do you? He's just a mess if he doesn't eat right. Representative Devenue's eyes widened, but she managed a dignified nod. Of course, I don't mind. Can I brief Mr. Corda while he eats? Jester grinned and tossed off her hat. It vanished as it hit the holopad, and her notebook appeared in her hand. Brief away, she said. I take all the notes anyhow. He lives the life of the wealthy. Jester, Corda said sternly, or at least as sternly as one could, with a plate of clotted cream, strawberry jam, and scones occupying both hands. Shall we stop teasing the good representative and get to work? Sure, boss. Jester sat cross-legged on her holopad. Representative Devenue shook her head in amazement, but forbore from commenting further. Angling her view screen so that she could consult it more easily, she took a deep breath. Mr. Corda, God's Pockets is proving to be quite a mystery. I had several members of my staff researching the company from the time we terminated our call yesterday. Despite full resources of the Terran regional government, they were unable to discover who precisely is behind the board of directors. Pray, continue, Corda said. Conchita Devenue flipped her palms apart in a gesture of helplessness. God's Pockets lists a variety of companies and persons, both human and alien, as members of the board of directors. However, our research shows that every entity listed as a front for someone or something else. We checked these as well, and the web simply became so complex that we were forced to give up. The cause is hopeless. Wise, Corda said. If they were that careful, we could end up triggering some warning system. Representative Devenue looked relieved. I am pleased that you see things that way. I was concerned that my staff and I would seem less devoted to the truth than we should be. Not at all, Corda said. I did some investigating of my own, and I'm certain that God's Pockets has some interesting secrets.
You must tell me the results of your research, Devanue said. Let me finish first. I really don't have that much left to tell.
Jester perked up. I'm still copying, Representative.
Thank you, Jester. Devanue shook her head, then consulted her notes. Our one success was that we learned that God's Pockets has registered not 2, but 7 pocket universes. Why don't I just give the basics now, and I can beam your computer... I can send Miss Jester the details later.
Corda nodded agreement. Jester wiggled happily on her holopad. That would be great, Representative, she said. After all, we may not need them. Why waste your time?
True, Devanue said. The universes contracted for by God's Pockets are as follows. Herbs, Aurans, Fortuna, Verdry, Cabal, Hungan, and Dice.
Corda scratched the back of his head thoughtfully. I believe I've heard of Fortuna. It's something of a mecca for hardcore gamblers. I've never heard of any of the rest.
Well, you're ahead of me, Devanue said. I've never heard of any of them, and they're within my jurisdiction. They don't seem to have much contact with Universe Prime. Now, can you tell me what you've learned?
Certainly, Corda said. As with you, it wasn't much, but what I did learn ties in nicely with your work. Herbs was designed by a fellow named Charlie Bell. We've been friendly acquaintances for centuries, but when I brought up the subject of God's Pockets, he really clammed up. My guess is that he was scared. Representative Devanue frowned.
Fascinating. Would you say that Mr. Bell was a person to scare easily?
Corda shook his head. No, not at all. He's a fine designer. You can't scare easily and work in this field. My next call was to an alien named Nizim Rokhtar.
He charged the call to your office, Jester cut in. That's fine, Representative Devanue said.
Nizim Rokhtar, Corda continued, is known for her work with deserts. Charlie Bell hinted that she had done work for God's Pockets, so I asked her about Aurans. She mentioned having designed it, but just like Charlie Bell, she adamantly refused to discuss it.
I suppose that is her obligation under the client confidentiality provisions, Devanue said.
True, Corda replied, but between you and me,
Jester piped in.
And you, Corda agreed patiently. Universe designers are artists in a way, but our art is a specialized one. We don't often get a chance to discuss the details with people who would understand them. Usually when two designers meet, there is at least some discussion of projects. Aurans, for example, had a binary star system, 2 habitable worlds, and alternate physics. Nizim Rokhtar should have been itching to do a bit of bragging.
But she didn't, Representative Devanue said. And neither did Charlie Bell about herbs. I see your point. Is there anything else?
There is, Corda said, and it may be the most disturbing element of all. Nizim Rokhtar did give me the name of another designer who worked for God's Pockets, a Clea Triffitt. When I tried to call her, I got an android instead. She's dead, recently the victim of a suspicious fire that not only killed her, but also destroyed most of her records. Representative Devanue frowned.
You suspect that she was murdered?
It does seem possible, Corda said, especially now that you have discovered that God's Pockets had other universes made. Quite possibly Clea Triffitt designed one or more of them. From what I recall, she was quite a hotshot.
God's Pockets does seem to merit further investigation, Devanue said.
Can I ask you not to start that investigation for a while? Corda said, at least until I check out the herbs and Aurans.
Are you afraid that they will come after you?
Perhaps, Corda said. I've been alive for a long time. I know that people who take care to hide something also tend to protect their secrets. Let's not give them any warning.
Devanue nodded. I agree. First and foremost, this unauthorized stasis needs to be looked into. God's Pockets can wait until later. I will let you work unhindered.
Representative?
Jester said, unnaturally diffident.
Before the boss signs off, could you send me his contract? I want to make certain it's in order before he goes blasting off into danger."
"But of course," Representative Devanue said. "And if you ever get tired of working for Mr. Korda, I hope you will consider working for me. You seem quite a bit more advanced than the average computer." Jester beamed at the praise.
"Thank you very much, Representative, but I could never leave Rene. He'd be lost without me."
Korda sighed and buried his face in his hands. "Given your praise, there will be no living with her, Representative. Not that there was much leeway before. I'll report as soon as I know something." "Thank you," Representative Devanue said. "I'll send that contract along. Good luck to you both."
"Thanks," Korda said. When the screen went black, he turned and shook his finger at Jester. "Jess, you are impossible." "But I'm great too, aren't I?" She twirled on one toe. "You couldn't do without me, could you, Sugar Pop?"
Korda tossed a scone at her. It sailed through the holographic image and broke against the wall. "Don't call me that." Chapter 3. Something like 20 hours later, Korda set course for the access point to Herbs. Its proximity made it the logical first choice, but Korda would have chosen it anyhow. There had been nothing in Representative Devanue's notes to indicate that he could expect abnormal physics. To start, he preferred as few surprises as possible. Much of the last day had been spent outfitting the Jester for this venture. In addition to the usual supplies of food, clothing, weapons, and ammunition, he had stocked his equipment pack with some tools that would have puzzled anyone but another person skilled in universe design. First, and perhaps most immediately important, came his supply of bottled time. This was a device that generated a personal temporal field. With it, the user negated the stasis effect for the wearer and whatever else was in immediate proximity. Bottled time had its drawbacks. For one, it was a power hog, so effectively that Korda could only carry a limited supply. If he was not very careful, he could find himself running out of time and joining Herbs in its unwelcome stasis. His second piece of gear, the resonance tracer, was only useful to a trained universe designer. The resonance tracer, when placed on magnetic north on a planet, supplied a reading of the planet's entire magnetic field. For most people, the resulting readout would be a useless blur of lines and numbers. However, a trained universe designer could interpret those lines and numbers and use them to find the location of the world key. Universe key would have been a better name for it, but world key was a holdover from terraforming. From within the world key, a universe designer could alter the basics of the universe. Most tellingly, only from within the world key could a universe be put into stasis. Korda's last piece of specialized gear, the Universal Tool, was theoretically available on the open market. However, UTs were so expensive that they were custom-made. A Universal Tool had the capacity to key directly into the physical laws of a universe and then function according to those laws. This ability was of inestimable value. With a good UT, travelers never need worry about being helpless within an environment. Rather like a Swiss Army knife, the Universal Tool contained a hammer, a screwdriver, and sundry other items, all guaranteed to work no matter what was the physical makeup of the universe. However, the last function of a UT was what ran up its price. A genius named Abbot Epi had come up with a way to permit the Universal Tool to read a pocket universe's physical design and then come up with the optimal tool for that environment. In the greater canvas of Universe Prime, this function of the UT was inert, but in the comparatively smaller area of a pocket universe, it functioned beautifully. Often, the function that the UT chose for itself was a clue to the physics of a given universe.
"We're approaching the entry point for the universe of Herbs, boss," Jester said, her tone a bit more formal than usual. "Are you ready?" Korda set aside his tools and strapped himself in the command chair on the bridge. "I'm ready, Jess. Let's start by scanning the vicinity, then we'll move in." "Gotcha," she said. There was a moment of silence then. Boss, I've located a beacon of some sort right by the entry point. It doesn't seem to have a weapons mount. Good job, Jester, Corda said. Signal it, and let's see if the beacon has anything to tell us. It could be the equivalent of a welcoming mat. Or a warning, Jester said. I'm signaling. The beacon's reply came almost instantly. Entry to the universe of herbs is restricted to those with prearranged business. If you are interested in doing business with this universe, please contact the officers of God's Pockets on Old Terra. Thank you. Corda nodded. Good. Now, Jess, put up our shields and take us in closer. Let's see if the beacon changes its tune. Shields up, O great and powerful maker of the universes, Jester said. We are approaching the beacon. I've left the comlink open. Warning, the beacon said. You are entering the private space of the universe of herbs. Transmit your official visa at this point. If you do not have an official visa, you may apply for one at the offices of God's Pockets on Old Terra. Please consider this your final warning. If you cross the entry point, you will be fired upon. Corda frowned. We're going to risk it, Jester. If the merchant report was correct, herbs is in stasis, so we shouldn't have anything to fear from their weapons. How did the merchants know that the universe was in stasis anyhow? Jester asked. Well, my guess is that they tried to pass the entry point and found that they couldn't get in. Long-range scanners would have shown that the planets were not revolving or moving in their orbits. A solar system is much like a clock if you know how to read it. That's cool, Jester said. Well, how are we going to get in? Corda smiled. Remember this morning when you were complaining that my alterations to your structure were tickling you? Yeah? Well, I fitted the ship with its own bottled time unit. Essentially, you can run it off your drives. As long as we make certain you don't run out of fuel, you're going to be better off than I am. You'll have a virtually limitless supply of bottled time. Jester's hologram appeared, an uncharacteristic expression of concern on her pixie features. But what about you, Renee? What if you run out? I'll just need to be careful not to run out, Corda said. You can help me by tracking my use of bottled time and informing me through the PDA when it gets low. The hologram grinned happily. You mean I get to use my personal digital assistant link and come with you? Corda resisted the impulse to pat the hologram. That's right, Jess. I'm going to need your help, especially your link to the ship's main computers. Boy, oh boy, Jester said. Well, boss, shall we cross the entry point? Shields up? Yep. Bottle time activated. There was a slight pause while Jester located her new ability. Got it, boss. Then let's go. Keep it slow and steady and run the cameras. We need to take a good look at what this universe has to offer. As the Jester glided past the still protesting beacon, her shields momentarily flared lime green. The control panel registered a faint sense of resistance, then they were through. Displayed before them as they traveled inward was a solar system consisting of 4 planets and an asteroid belt orbiting an Earth-normal yellow sun. Although even the naked eye should have been able to see movement within the asteroid belt, everything was still as a photograph. Corda glanced at the readout screen, speaking aloud more from habit than from a need to inform Jester of what her own instruments were telling him. Let's see, he said. The 2 outer planets are gas giants. The next planet is an Earth-equivalent orbit and appears to have a breathable atmosphere. The innermost planet has a thin atmosphere and a high metal content. The asteroid belt also shows a high proportion of metal ores. Where do you want to start, boss? Jester asked. In order to find the world key, Corda said, I need to set the resonance tracer on magnetic north for the most likely world. From here, that looks like the one with the breathable atmosphere. Can we call that one herbs just to make things simple? Jester asked. Technically, Corda said, it is herbs too, but I'm willing to concede the point for simplicity's sake. Let's do a quick flyby of the inner world and then head into herbs. Stay clear of the asteroid belt whenever possible. Our bottled time is going to reactivate those babies and we don't know their velocities. I hear and obey, Great Master, Jester said. I'm taking us in. The flyby showed them that Herbs 1 was a barren planet devoid of any habitation. The planet's surface was scored with strip mines. Processing factories turned raw ore into bars of gleaming metal. Other factories were apparently devoted to turning the raw metal into machinery. It looks like the place is fully automated, Jester said, her tone touched with awe. That's an amazing feat. I'm almost as amazed that with an entire planet to mine, Corda said, this universe still imports metals. The demand must be enormous. They probably mined the gas giants for materials as well as fuel. Fuel, Jester said. That's a good thing to remember. We should tank up before we leave. Maintaining the bottled time has put me at about half efficiency. That bad, Corda said with a frown. I thought I did a better job with the installation. I'll tinker with the link-up later. Meanwhile, I don't think we have much to worry about. Once we put down on herbs, you can put the star drives on standby. Good planning, Jester said. Traveling on in-system drives, we're going to take about half an hour to get to herbs. If you want, you have time to grab something to eat. I hear and obey, Corda said with a chuckle. I have a taste for fettuccine alfredo and a green salad. Appearing on the holopad in the gallery, Jester shook her head in dismay. Once again she had donned her chef's cap. She waggled a diminutive wooden spoon at him. You really should watch your cholesterol, Renee. Corda went to program the food processor and discovered that Jester had already done so, in the process adding a slice of chocolate raspberry torte to the menu. You should talk, Jess, he said, amused as always. She winked at him and twinkled out. Corda was just finishing the torte with a glass of milk when she reappeared on the holopad. We're approaching the planet of herbs, boss. I've been scanning as we closed in, and you've got to see this place. I don't think there's a square mile that has been left in anything like a natural state. Corda hastened to the bridge and played back the scanner recordings. What Jester had said was true. Herbs was completely urbanized. The only green spots were obviously parks or planned farm areas. Even the shorelines of the oceans looked as if they had been stamped out with harbors neatly placed at convenient distances from each other. No wonder Charlie Bell didn't want to brag about this one, Corda muttered. It's creepy. Shaking himself, he tapped into the navigational computer. Jester set us down near Magnetic North. There appears to be a garden of some sort in that vicinity, so you should be able to avoid damaging anything. Aye, aye, Captain, she said. Then the hum of the engines changed, and the Jester began her descent through the atmosphere onto the sleeping planet of herbs.